Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's take up the daily quiz for today. The first question. The upcoming Kutiran Tunnel connects which two locations? Shimla and Manali, Gangtok and Nathula, Thrissur and Palakkad, Kasargod and Mangalore. The correct answer is option C. The upcoming Kutiran Tunnel connects Thrissur and Palakkad in Kerala. This question has been asked because we have a related article on page number 8 of today's The Hindu newspaper. The article makes a reference to the opening of the Kutiran Tunnel, which is being built near the Palghat Gap or the Palghat Pass. This tunnel seeks to connect Palakkad or Palghat over here with Thrissur, and it has been designed to reduce the traffic congestion and bring down the travel time in a crucial transport corridor in the Western Ghats region. See, the Palghat Gap or the Palghat Pass, it represents a gap or an opening in the Western Ghats. To the north of the Palghat Gap, we have the Nilgiri Hills, and to the south, you have the Annamalai Hills. So these high mountains of the Western Ghats, they prevent transportation and connectivity between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. But the opening at the Palghat Gap provides an opportunity for transportation and connectivity, and this route has been used since the ancient times. We also have several important roads, including national highways and railway routes that pass through the Palghat Gap. It basically connects Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu over here with the eastern parts of Kerala located across the Western Ghats. The Palghat Gap is also significant with regard to the climate and weather of the region as well. The gap allows the southwest monsoon winds to pass over into parts of Tamil Nadu and moderate the summer temperature and even bring rainfall to parts of Tamil Nadu near Coimbatore. Then it also allows the tropical cyclones that form in the Bay of Bengal to cross over into Kerala. Then the shape of the Palghat Pass is such that it acts like a wind funnel, thereby generating high-speed winds, which in turn makes it a potential site for harvesting wind energy. So as a result, several windmill projects are also located in and around the Palghat Pass. Now let's look at the second question. Which of the following statements are correct? The Dhauli Ganga river originates from Vasudhara Tal, one of the largest glacial lakes in Uttarakhand. It is a left bank tributary of the Alaknanda and flows into it at Vishnu Prayag. Both the statements are correct, so option C is the right answer. This question has been asked because we have a related article on page number 9 of the Hindu newspaper. The article is related to the flash floods that occurred in Uttarakhand the day before yesterday. Initial reports related to this disaster indicated that the flash floods might have occurred because of a glacial lake outburst flood event. But however, following investigation by experts, including the Central Water Commission, it has been observed through satellite images that there was no glacial lake in the region, and hence it is being indicated that the flash floods might have occurred either because of a landslip or a landslide or because of an avalanche. It is believed that the source of these flash floods originated somewhere over here near the Nanda Devi peak, and this is where you find a glacier known as the Raikana Glacier. This glacier forms a lake known as the Vasudhara Tal, which is one of the largest glacial lakes in Uttarakhand, and it gives birth to the Dhauli Ganga river. So the flash floods witnessed in the Dhauli Ganga river created massive flooding in the downstream areas, especially around Joshimath, Vishnu Prayag and other locations. And it has also completely washed away hydropower projects at Rishi Ganga and at Tapovan. Now let's look at the third question. How is the United Nations Human Rights Council or UNHRC related to the United Nations? Is it a principal organ of the UN or a specialized agency or a subsidiary organ or a program established by the UN? The correct answer is option C. The UNHRC is a subsidiary organ of the United Nations. This question has been asked because according to this article on page number 13 of the Hindu, the United States has expressed its plans to rejoin the UNHRC after former President Donald Trump had controversially withdrawn the United States from the UNHRC by alleging that the organization was biased against Israel and the United States. See, the UNHRC is a subsidiary organ of the UN and it was established in 2006 to replace the UN Commission on Human Rights, or the former UNCHR. This former human rights organization of the UN was heavily criticized by several countries for allowing and accepting countries with very poor human rights track record to be the members of the council. So following this criticism, the UNCHR was disbanded and it was replaced by the UN General Assembly with a new organization known as the UNHRC. Its mandate is to promote and protect human rights around the world, and it has 47 members who are elected on a staggered basis for a 3-year term, and the election takes place on the basis of a regional quota. The headquarters of this institution is located in Geneva, Switzerland, and its mandate includes investigation into allegations of violation of human rights in UN member states. Along with looking into cases of human right violations, it also has the powers to investigate any violation of freedom of expression, freedom of association and assembly, freedom of belief and religion, violation of women's rights or gender rights, and as well as the rights of the LGBTQ community and the rights of the racial and ethnic minorities. Because these fundamental rights are also considered to be an integral part of a modern democracy, and these fundamental rights are also seen to be integral to the broader issue of human rights. So periodically, the UNHRC conducts a review of the UN member states by working closely with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and it also has the powers to investigate and take suitable action against those countries which are violating the UN procedures. Now let's take up the fourth question. The term rules-based international order is often used in the context of which grouping? Is it BRICS, or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the Quad, or the Indian Ocean Commission? The correct answer is option C, the Quadrilateral. The Quad is an informal diplomatic grouping of 4 countries which includes India, United States, Japan and Australia. This grouping is primarily focused on the Indo-Pacific region, which has emerged as the hub for global geopolitics. The objective of this grouping is to enforce a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific region so that the countries of the Indo-Pacific do not violate international law. This question has been asked because we have an article in the Indian Express according to which Prime Minister Modi has spoken to US President Joe Biden, and during this conversation they have highlighted their joint commitment for establishing a rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific region. This objective of the Quad is basically an indirect reference to the aggression of China in the South China Sea with regard to the ongoing maritime dispute in the region. In the strategic South China Sea, China has triggered a maritime dispute with multiple Southeast Asian countries including Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, etc. Even in the East China Sea region, China has entered into maritime conflicts with countries such as Japan, and as a part of this ongoing maritime dispute over the jurisdiction of the EEZ, or Exclusive Economic Zone, China has been displaying a lot of military aggression which has threatened freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. So this aggressive behavior of China is in direct violation of international law as established under the UN clause or the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. But China has violated these provisions openly, and it has not only threatened freedom of navigation in the region, but it has also challenged the sovereignty of several countries in the region. So this basically amounts to the disrespect of international law by China, and hence the Quad grouping is looking to enforce a rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific. Now let's take up the fifth question. What are Ethereum, Ripple and Doge, which are often seen in news? Are they types of cryptocurrencies or ballistic missiles being developed by Russia, types of malware used in cyber attacks, or none of the above? The correct answer is option A. They are types of cryptocurrencies. Just like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Doge and the others, even they are different types of cryptocurrencies. This question has been asked because we have a related article in the Indian Express that refers to a massive investment in Bitcoin that has been made by the company Tesla. Tesla, which manufactures electric cars, has been set up by popular entrepreneur Elon Musk. And this company has not only made the biggest investment in Bitcoin, but it has also stated that it might start accepting payments for their electric cars in Bitcoins. The topic of cryptocurrencies is going to be important for your exams because over the last 3 to 4 months, the world of cryptocurrencies has witnessed a massive boom, and the prices of all these digital currencies have grown exponentially, including that of Bitcoin, Ripple, Ethereum, and the Dogecoin. This exponential growth in the prices of cryptocurrencies is a direct result of its increased adoption around the world. Companies such as Tesla, PayPal, and even large hedge funds and investors have started looking at cryptocurrencies as a potential investment option, and they're also treating it as an hedge against inflation. This has been followed by increased adoption of cryptocurrencies in payments around the world, and this has led to an increase in investors' interest in cryptocurrencies. Now, this is a major development because it represents the ongoing conflict between fiat currencies and cryptocurrencies. See, fiat currencies are the national currencies that are guaranteed by the respective governments and issued by the respective central banks. So, in a traditional economy, the fiat currency is centralized and regulated, and carrying out any transaction through such fiat currencies involves a number of middlemen, including banks and financial institutions. But cryptocurrencies or digital currencies, on the other hand, provide for a completely decentralized model, and it takes the control of the currency away from the government and the central banks, and it eliminates all the middlemen. It has been built on the platform of a revolutionary technology known as blockchain. So even though these cryptocurrencies have tremendous potential to decentralize finance, they have also raised a lot of concerns, especially with regard to their volatility and its potential for misuse. Since cryptocurrencies guarantee anonymity, it is being widely misused for money laundering, organized criminal activities, and even for terrorist financing. So keeping these concerns in mind, the Government of India has proposed to bring in a bill in the ongoing budget session to ban all private cryptocurrencies, and through this bill, the government is also looking to enable the RBI to come out with its own official digital currency. Now let's take up a practice question from the 2018 prelims paper. With reference to solar power production in India, consider the following statements. India is the third largest in the world in the manufacture of silicon wafers used in photovoltaic units. The solar power tariffs are determined by the Solar Energy Corporation of India. Both the statements are incorrect, so option D is the right answer. Because see, India lags behind in the production of silicon wafers, and it is heavily dependent on imports from China and other European countries. And the second statement is also incorrect because solar power tariffs are determined by the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission and not by the Solar Energy Corporation of India. The Solar Energy Corporation of India is a PSU or a public sector unit which is promoting the adoption of solar energy in order to achieve the objectives of the National Solar Mission. Now let's look at the fact of the day. Today we are going to talk about Mission Innovation. See, Mission Innovation is a global initiative involving 24 countries and as well as the European Union. The objective of this mission is to accelerate the adoption of clean energy around the world. Its objective is to promote the adoption of clean energy both in the public and the private sector in order to address climate change and global warming. It aims to promote the widespread adoption of clean energy around the world in order to make it affordable to the consumer and as well as to create jobs and create more commercial opportunities. This initiative was announced by Bill Gates at the 21st Conference of Parties of the Climate Change Convention in 2015 when the historic Paris Agreement was signed. The initiative was announced by Bill Gates along with President Obama, the French President, and as well as with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Under this initiative, the member states have committed to double their respective clean energy R&D budget over a period of 5 years, and this commitment is very crucial because these member countries also include 5 of the most populous nations in the world, including India, China, US, Indonesia, and Brazil. The top 20 member states of this initiative, they account for 75% of the global CO2 emissions that comes from electricity generation, and they also account for 80% of the global R&D investment in clean energy technologies. See, currently the biggest barrier for the widespread adoption of clean energy is its cost. The cost of clean energy is higher because adequate technologies are not readily available. So this initiative plans to enable the governments and the private sector to increase their investment in R&D substantially with regard to clean energy. And along with this commitment by the governments, even the private sector led by Bill Gates has established a parallel initiative known as the Breakthrough Energy Coalition. This is basically a group of private investors who will work along with the national governments who are part of Mission Innovation, and their objective is to drive up R&D investment in 8 innovation challenge areas that have been identified under Mission Innovation. This includes the adoption of smart grids, off-grid access to electricity, carbon capture, sustainable biofuels, converting sunlight into solar energy, clean energy materials to promote carbon sequestration, and as well as the adoption of affordable heating and cooling of buildings along with renewable and clean hydrogen. So this brings our discussion to an end. If you find these videos to be useful, please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel. So that is it for today. Thanks for watching.